Canada just made a $214 billion move that puts the US on the back foot. That's right. The country often seen as America's quiet neighbor just pulled off a deal so massive. It could tilt the balance of power in North America. This isn't just about money. It's about energy dominance, trade realignment, and geopolitical influence that stretches far beyond the border. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this single deal has the potential to reshape not only Canada's future, but the entire global order, and why Washington might be more nervous than it wants to admit. Canada versus US power balance. For decades, the United States has been the heavyweight champion of global trade, energy production, and international influence. Washington dictates terms on the world stage. Its corporations dominate global markets, and its military reach spans the entire planet. Whenever we talk about North America, it's usually the US at the center of the story. Canada is often painted as the quieter, less powerful neighbor. Economically, Canada has historically relied on the United States for survival. Roughly 3/4 of Canadian exports go directly to the US, making Canada deeply tied to American consumption and policies. Militarily, too, Canada has leaned on US protection through NATO and shared defense agreements, rarely stepping into the spotlight alone. For years, it seemed like Canada's role was simply to supply resources to fuel America's engine. But this $214 billion deal changes that narrative. For the first time in modern history, Canada has positioned itself not just as a supportive partner, but as a direct competitor and potential leader in areas the US once dominated. It's a power flip, Canada moving from the shadows of dependence into the spotlight of influence. The $214 billion deal explains so. What exactly is this deal? At its core, the $214 billion agreement is a massive, coordinated investment in Canada's energy and resource sectors, particularly in critical minerals, renewable infrastructure, and energy exports. Backed by international partners in Europe and Asia, this deal funnels capital into Canadian provinces like Alberta, Quebec, and Ontario, building everything from new mining operations to next-generation battery plants. The scope is staggering. Billions are allocated to expand rare earth mineral extraction, vital for electric vehicles, defense technologies, and smartphones. Billions more are flowing into green energy projects like wind, solar, and hydroelectric, with an eye on exporting clean power to the US and beyond. On top of that, massive upgrades are planned for ports, pipelines, and railways, positioning Canada as a global logistics hub. What makes it a game-changer is timing. While the US struggles with political infighting and slow-moving energy reforms, Canada has seized the moment, locking in international partnerships that guarantee both investment and market demand. This isn't just Canada catching up, it's Canada sprinting ahead in industries that will define the next century. Why the deal matters globally. Globally, the $214 billion deal signals that Canada is no longer just the US's junior partner. It's emerging as an independent economic power. In an era where energy security, critical minerals, and sustainable infrastructure are the new currency of influence, Canada has placed itself at the center of the game. Think about it. The EU, desperate to reduce reliance on Russian energy, is looking for stable, democratic suppliers. India, with its booming demand for raw materials, is searching for long-term partners. Even China, while officially a competitor, has an eye on Canada's untapped reserves. In every case, Canada is suddenly a player with leverage. And what about the US? Washington is watching closely and nervously. This deal threatens to undercut America's dominance in critical minerals and renewable technology. It could force US companies and policymakers to pivot north, relying more on Canadian supply chains. For the first time in decades, the United States might find itself playing catch-up on its own continent. Canada's strategic advantage is what gives Canada this edge. It starts with resources. The country is sitting on vast reserves of oil, natural gas, uranium, lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements, all crucial for powering modern economies. In a world racing toward electric vehicles, AI-driven technology, and green infrastructure, Canada isn't just resource-rich, it's resource-essential. Geography is another advantage. With access to the Arctic shipping lanes opening due to climate change, Canada is poised to become a major trade gateway between Asia, Europe, and North America. That's a geographic card the US simply can't play in the same way. Then there's political stability. Unlike other resource-heavy nations, often plagued by corruption or instability, Canada offers a safe, reliable environment for long-term investment. That's why so many international players are comfortable pouring billions into its industries. And finally, Canada has been diversifying its trade relationships. No longer locked into a single market strategy with the US, Ottawa is building stronger ties with Europe, Japan, South Korea, and India. Layer onto this Canada's commitment to green energy innovation, and you have a country that's not only rich in today's resources, but also ready for tomorrow's economy. The US weakness is exposed, of course. Canada's rise isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening because the US has left cracks in its own armor. For one, the US remains heavily reliant on imports for critical minerals, particularly from China, a dangerous position given ongoing geopolitical tensions. Canada, by contrast, is building self-sufficiency and control over its supply chains. Political gridlock in Washington also plays a huge role. While the US debates climate policies and struggles to pass major infrastructure bills, Canada has been moving decisively. Investors hate uncertainty, and America has been offering plenty of it. Canada, meanwhile, looks like a safer bet. The US is also losing momentum in the green energy race. Europe and Asia are accelerating toward electrification, and Canada is meeting that demand. American companies are now forced to look north, not south, for opportunities, giving Canada the upper hand. In short, the deal doesn't just highlight Canada's strength, it exposes America's weaknesses. Winners and losers of the deal. So who comes out on top here? Canadian industries, without question, are the biggest winners. Mining companies, renewable energy firms, and logistics providers are about to see historic growth. Provincial governments will benefit from surging tax revenues, and Canadian workers could see a boom in high-paying jobs. International allies like the EU and Japan also benefit, gaining a reliable alternative to Chinese or Russian supply chains. Investors who get an early stand to profit massively from Canada's rise as a resource and energy hub. But there are losers, too. Certain U.S. sectors, especially in mining, energy, and manufacturing, risk losing dominance as Canada captures more global market share. American policymakers may see their negotiating power weakened, forced to rely more heavily on Canadian exports. Even consumers might feel ripple effects, with shifts in pricing and supply chains hitting industries from cars to electronics. The real question is, will the U.S. adapt, or will it resist and risk falling further behind? Historical parallels: this isn't the first time a so-called smaller player has outmaneuvered a superpower. In the 1970s, oil-rich nations in the Middle East stunned the world with the OPEC oil shocks, leveraging their natural resources to shake even the United States. Those decisions reshaped global trade and made the world realize that energy dominance can shift power overnight. Closer to home, think back to the 1990s and the NAFTA negotiations. Many underestimated how Canada and Mexico could negotiate terms that gave them stronger footing in trade with the US. Canada, in particular, secured protections for key industries like culture and natural resources, ensuring it wouldn't be swallowed whole by its much larger neighbor. And of course, who can ignore the rise of China? Once considered a low-cost manufacturing hub, it has transformed into a global power rivaling the United States. China's climb shows how strategic investments, resource control, and global partnerships can rapidly flip the balance of power. What makes Canada's move unique, however, is that it's happening inside America's own backyard. This isn't a distant nation challenging US dominance from across the ocean. It's Canada, the closest ally and trading partner, making a play that redefines the balance of power in North America itself. That's not just historic, it's unprecedented. The future outlook: so, where does this all lead? In the short term, the ripple effects will be felt across trade, investment, and politics. Expect Canadian exports to surge, global investors to redirect capital northward, and policymakers in Washington to scramble for a response. Ordinary consumers may start noticing shifts in pricing and supply chains, especially in industries tied to energy, cars, and technology. In the long term, this could mark a turning point in US-Canada relations. Will America view Canada as a true partner, working together to build a secure North American energy bloc? Or will it see Canada as a competitor encroaching on its influence, sparking tension and rivalry? That choice will define not just trade, but diplomacy for decades to come. There's also the possibility of Canada leading in areas where the US has stumbled: green technology, Arctic trade routes, and critical mineral production. Imagine Canada not just exporting oil and gas, but leading the charge in supplying lithium for electric cars, cobalt for electronics, and clean power for cities across the world. That's not science fiction. It's already underway. The big question is whether the US will retaliate, compete, or collaborate. If Washington chooses cooperation, North America could become the strongest energy and technology bloc in the world. If it chooses rivalry, however, we may see a dramatic and costly contest between two neighbors who should be working together. At the end of the day, Canada's $214 billion deal isn't just business. It's a strategic checkmate. It signals that the quiet neighbor has stepped out of America's shadow and is ready to shape the future of energy, trade, and global influence. For the US, it's a wake-up call. For Canada, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. But what does this mean for everyday people? It means jobs, it means new industries, and it means North America's future may no longer be dictated solely by Washington. Whether you're Canadian, American, or anywhere else in the world, the ripple effects of this deal will touch your life through the energy you consume, the tech you buy, and the prices you pay. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think this move makes Canada the new power player in North America? Or will the US push back harder than ever to keep its dominance intact? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives on global economics and geopolitics, and share this video with someone who needs to know just how much the world is changing right now.